Hi everyone, good afternoon. For today, I have another special guest, and for the first time, it will be a guy this time because you've been wondering probably I always have girls, but I have a cute, handsome father that I am interviewing today, and he's one of my colleagues, and I'll let Jay introduce himself.
My name is Jay Ruzicka. I'm the digital content creator at Providence Public Library, and I am originally from New York State, now living here in Rhode Island with my wife and two children.
Okay, what made you move to Rhode Island since New York is a very nice state, and a lot to see?
That's true. So what happened was I was living in New York. I was 25 years old and actually got a job at MIT in Massachusetts. So I moved to Massachusetts for probably like 8 years, something around 8 years, and then moved back to the New York City area around the time that COVID began. And then my wife got a new job a couple years later in Boston. So we ended up deciding to move to Rhode Island. We always liked Rhode Island. We always used to come down here to go to the zoo or to go to the beach or to walk around Providence. So it always kind of made sense that if we were going to settle down somewhere for a while, that it'd be right here in Rhode Island.
Wow, I know it's kind of like long overdue, but congratulations for you and for your wife.
Thank you.
And he's a good asset of the library, and he's a very good friend of ours, and he's a very good, should I say photographer, but really he's a digital...
Yeah, it's basically a fancy way of saying that I'm a photographer and videographer, and I also do social media, so you can say any of those things and it would be accurate.
Okay, so you kids out there, if you want to be a photographer or you wanted to ask anything has to do with photography or digital stuff, you can send it to me and I'll have Jay make sure answers it, okay?
I would love to answer it. I can talk about photography and filmmaking and all of that for days straight without sleeping. So.
Okay, so we'll count on it. We'll count him down. Okay,
yes, that's good.
Okay, Jay, my question. First of all, thank you so much for taking this opportunity for the interview. And I know he's a very busy guy, but I have to really ask him, and for you kids, he's doing this all for you. And so it's really a privilege. So thank you for the privilege of your time and for taking the time because he's really busy. And then my question, first of all, is that do you love to read?
I do love to read. I've been reading pretty much my whole life, and my tastes have changed over the years. The things that I liked when I was a kid became a little different when I became a teenager, which became a little bit different when I became a grown-up. So the things that I read have always changed, but it's fun now because I have children, so to be able to go back and read them books that I enjoyed when I was a kid, it's kind of come full circle, and it's been a lot of fun.
So did you read by yourself, or do you remember your parents reading to you, and at what age did you start reading?
Yeah, so I probably started reading, I was probably 5, 6 years old when I really started to look at books. I didn't always understand all of the words yet as I was still learning to read, but certainly by the time I was 7, I was deeply invested in books. My parents didn't read too much, but my grandma did. My grandma read to me all the time. She read a variety of different books to me at bedtime, just for fun sometimes. She was always very big into reading, and when I think back to the books that I was read as a kid, like she's the one that comes to mind the most for me.
Oh, okay. So, do you have any favorite books? Since your grandma reads a lot to you, there should be one or two that stands out that you remember and you love the best.
Yeah, so the two books that I remember her reading to me the most were The Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. There was just a bunch of different stories in there. And then there was also a Beatrix Potter book that had a lot of different stories as well. So Peter Rabbit, of course, and all of the classics. Now my oldest daughter has been reading the Peter Rabbit books, so it's once again come full circle. But those are the two that I remember her reading to me the most. And then I had my other grandmother also read this book, and my mom occasionally did as well. I think it was called like in a dark, dark house or something along those lines, and it was this Halloween book. You probably could look it up on the internet and find it. It's something like in a dark, dark house or in a dark, maybe called in a dark, dark room.
Yeah.
But it's this really fun Halloween book. So.
Okay, so now let me just think. So you like not Halloween, but horror, not horror. Should I say
You
that?
can say that, yeah.
Horror stuff when you were younger?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I like things that were scary to me when I was little, in the sense that where I would feel safe. I didn't want to go, ride a bike off a roof or something that was actually scary and dangerous. I had no interest in. I was a very scared kid in terms of adventure, but when it came to reading about like ghosts or vampires or whatever, like that was always fun to me as a kid, for sure.
Okay, so now on that kind of line, were you thinking like you were a superhero during that time, since you like to read those? But in a superhero, who do you want it to be?
Batman. I was
Of course.
big time Batman. I would say I was a big time Batman fan. I am a big time Batman fan still, as a grown up. So, as a kid, I loved the movies. I was not a big comic book person, but I still read, or would flip through the Batman comic books. I had this Batman chapter book, probably around 5th or 6th grade. So I was always a giant Batman fan, to the point where I had all the toys and just everything. And now my oldest daughter has found herself into Batman recently, so now I get to revisit all the fun that I had with her. So we've been watching all the shows and some of the movies, and I found my little Batmobile toy, and I gave that to her. So Batman was always big for me growing up.
I think the one thing that I kind of like with Batman is that being Bruce Wayne, you have all the money in the world. You're one of the richest. I think he's like a tycoon, sort of, and then he can make all these things. Like he had his own Batcave, but it's the good things that he does for people. That's the thing that, and Jay is kind of like that. He does a lot of good things to other people. And what's very impressive too is that he had 2 princesses in his life. Of course, the queen is his wife, yeah. But he had 2 gorgeous princesses, and I've seen them. And he's really a good dad because he brings them to the library and he borrows books for them. So I guess you read to them.
I do. We read all the time. My oldest, she's almost 6, so some of the books that we read, it varies. She really likes Barnyard Dance. I don't know if anyone's ever read Barnyard Dance, but that's a good one. And she likes all like the Goodnight books. Like I'm from New York. We have Goodnight New York, but we also have Goodnight New Jersey because she lived with us in New Jersey for a year. We have Goodnight Rhode Island, of course, because why wouldn't we have Goodnight Rhode Island? And then she's starting to like baseball a little bit, so we have like Goodnight Yankees and things like that as well. My youngest is not even a year old yet, so she doesn't fully understand what's happening, but we're cycling through all those books that we read to my oldest. We're reading with her now as well, so I'm assuming that she's going to start having kind of a favorite book soon. Right now, we really trying to push that Barnyard Dance just because it's so sing-songy when you read it. It's so much fun to read, so I think that's probably the one that she likes the most right now.
Was there a time that you didn't have a book, that you were so into it that you have to do all these actions, make your own voices, like that to her and make her laugh and stuff?
Definitely. There was, with my oldest especially, I would just try to create a story. I'm like, she's too young, she won't know that I'm just making this up right now. So I'm just going to make up the story and hope that I find what the story is as I say it. The thing about reading Barnyard Dance, going back to Barnyard Dance again, is that I read it so often every single night that I actually memorized it. So when we didn't even have the book with us, I was able to read it from start to finish without actually having it present. So luckily, my memory is great. Otherwise, it would be a lot more of those stories, just hoping that I find something interesting along the way.
And so, with that one, do you have anything that you kind of always tell her, like, a quote or something like you kind of, I know she's still too young for you to give advices, but sometimes a word or things that you say to her that kind of will encourage her, like, does she go to school now?
Not yet, no.
Not yet,
yeah.
Okay.
Not the youngest one, but for me, it's always about just cultivating the right books, because if we want to say something, we want her to really feel a certain way, we want to be able to read books to her that support that. So for us, it's about like helping other people and, not worrying about what other people think about any kind of difference you might have, or if people make fun of you, not worrying about any of that, just being good to everybody. And the books that we read kind of reflect that as well. So we're just trying to make sure that as she gets older, she's putting people or human beings first, because that's important.
Okay, well, that's a good one. So now, do you have any word of encouragement to the kids that you can give out there, and that could, help them and, to continue on? So guys, you listen up, okay?
So a couple things I would say. The first thing is patience, which is hard for me because I like things to happen quickly, but things don't always happen quickly. So when I got into photography and videography, I started making movies when I was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
I'm almost 30. I'm going to be 36 this Saturday. So to give you a...
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, Jay's birthday is my 30th anniversary at the library.
That's right.
It's this coming May 28th, and he really had a good memory as well. He remembers.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So it took me a long time to be able to do what I wanted and to make money with it, to have a career. It took me a number of years to get better, but if you keep working at it, and it's all about repetitions. You have to do things a lot. The best way to get good at anything you want to do is just to do it as much as possible. And sometimes it'll take a while, but eventually you'll start seeing yourself get better, and more opportunities will present themselves. And it's just really about being patient and knowing that things will come together. And of course, just working hard. To be able to do what you want to do, you have to work at it. And the good thing is, if you're doing what you want to be doing, it won't feel all that much like work. You're really going to enjoy it. Not to say you're not going to have bad days with it. We all have bad days with it. But I would say it's much better to have a bad day doing something you love doing than have a bad day doing something you don't like as much. So just keep working at it, have patience, and things will always come together.
And as they say, patience is a virtue.
That's right.
And with that, thank you so much. And again, Jay, thank you so much for the privilege of your time. And guys, I know you love this segment, so for sure we'll have Jay the next time. So send in your questions, okay? And he'd love to answer it. So
Definitely.
For now, we just wanted to say bye, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.